Hi, guys, and welcome to this episode of Brewing our E-commerce. And I have this very special lady with me today, who's on this amazing journey of trying to put sense into people's head, right? And I'll let her explain more about the journey and the brand as we talk. But welcome, Joey, to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's really nice to speak with you. It's nice we've met a few times in person, so it's always
Yes.
nice to kind of take that conversation and bring that online. So yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Joey. So let's kickstart. For the interest of everybody who doesn't know you as well as I do, I'd like to, for you to kind of introduce yourself and the brand, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Joey and I am the co-founder at Leiho. A bit of background, I grew up in so many different countries, so Singapore, Hong Kong, LA, and London. And at a very young age, I was exposed to a lot of kind of structural inequalities. But also, as a third culture kid, I think I was very curious about the world and about people and, how I guess just more about like the culture and stuff like that. So I think that influenced a lot of what I wanted to do growing up. So a lot of the things that I did media and communications at Newcastle University, but on the side, I joined this society called Enactus, and it was like kind of teaching students how to, I guess, raise funds and solve problems that were to do with like social businesses or like the environment and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think I, at a very young age, was very curious about things like that. So then I did my master's and I met my co founder, Thuta, and we both wanted to start a brand that really inspired people on a very kind of personal level. So, when you kind of, to give context, like if you were to donate to charity £10 today, you would remember today, but in a week you wouldn't really remember. Whereas the point of Leiho is that, you are able to buy something that does good and you're helping people in need. But every time you look at that product, you're reminded by the good that you've done. So that was kind of the inspiration behind, what we've started. And today, Leiho is a purpose-driven brand. We were nominated top 100 startups in 2024, which is really cool. And we basically sell kind of your everyday essentials, like the socks you put on in the morning, the caps that you wear, the t-shirts. So all those everyday essentials that help us fund paid employment opportunities, workshops and essentials for people experiencing homelessness, refugees, and just underserved communities. So yeah.
Super impressive, Joey. There's so much from it that I could kind of think of that I want to go deep dive into. So many threads out there, but let me start by this. So, I myself lived in about six different countries, worked in different places, and I didn't realize it. But a few months back, somebody else came and told me that you moved to a country not of where you were born, then you started a company in a different one altogether.
Mm,
That must be like 10 times harder than kind of doing it if you were born there, right?
yeah.
I had not thought of it in that way, but now hearing you, what's been your experience? How does it add value, but also are the challenges that you face when you are in a situation like this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to be honest, I haven't really thought about it until only quite recently, but it is such a, kind of, I guess, like rewarding, but also just really fortunate position to be in. So, for me, I kind of struggle to understand. I think as a third culture kid, you struggle to understand where your actual home is. It's obviously where your family is and where a majority of your actual kind of personal belongings and things are. But it was also really hard, I guess, to understand where is home for me because I left,
Mm.
I was born in Singapore and then I kind of grew up and had my teenage years in Hong Kong. Then I went to LA and back to Hong Kong. So it was a lot of moving around. And I think coming to the UK, it was like I went to university there and having to learn a kind of whole new culture that was actually quite similar to Hong Kong, because obviously Hong Kong used to be a
Yeah.
British colony. But even then, it was like, a complete new culture. The kind of banter here is obviously,
Yeah.
there's
Very
loads
different.
of different things. But it's that learning to adapt as well. And I think, as leaders or as entrepreneurs, you kind of learn how to adapt constantly, whether it's like changes to the market or, your business and stuff like that. So having that ability to adapt, I think, became really useful to really, really growing a business in the UK, because, it was that, I guess, feeling of constantly knowing you have to learn, and you have to grow and you have to understand your surroundings to then develop this business. And I guess that applies the same with moving to a new country. You have to learn,
Yeah.
you have to
True.
adapt to grow. So yeah, I would say it was really challenging, and it still is, learning a lot about the way the UK works in terms of like dealing with a lot of vulnerable communities or underserved communities compared to Singapore and Hong Kong and LA especially. So like every single country, the way they deal and support people that are struggling is very different,
Very
and so
different.
what works in one country might not work in another.
That's right.
So having to learn that was, yeah, really interesting, I guess, and it was something that we were kind of dedicated to do. And the kind of support in London is just immense, so it didn't make it too hard for us, to say the least.
On the support, Joy. So I have struggled, and again, and I think when we talk as entrepreneurs, when we talk as startup founders, that I try to be as honest and share my struggles with everybody, because people do feel that, but they don't kind of bring it up and say everything's rosy, and which is not true. um, like for me, moving to the UK about 8 years back, but being new in the e-com industry was very daunting,
Yeah.
right? Not knowing the brands, not knowing the agencies, not knowing the people, etc. But as you very rightly said, the support has been so nice. Walking to the room, most of the people, they're willing to extend the hand. What were your top challenges when you kind of wanted to start this in the UK?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tricky one. So I guess challenges wise, I mean, there's so many. So I started the business I started my kind of entrepreneurial journey when I was 20. And so I was still really young. And I
Yeah,
think, going into that industry or that world is very intimidating, but also it's almost, I would say, easier because you have no expectations. You just go in, as in it's enjoyable, it's fun, right?
yeah,
When you're
yeah.
20, it's like
I know.
you've got nothing to lose. It's
True.
You're there to learn, you're there with open arms, being like, okay, what can I do? Obviously, as years go by, you're like, okay, I need to actually, there's a lot more strategy, a lot more responsibility. So
Yeah,
I would say like starting it younger actually made it a lot easier for me to not bring my kind of imposter syndrome in, and all these other thoughts about like the finances and like age and like whether or not it's possible, and thinking about my future. There was no kind of, I guess, stress about my future at that point.
true. Yeah.
um, so yeah, I would say like the challenges then were really, it was good that I was young, and it was, I had my co-founder with me as well. And, we started Leiho when I was 21 and she started it when she was 22. So the kind of journey started at 20, but actually incorporating the business was 21, 22. And I think we were really young, kind of in that kind of social enterprise world. But we decided to kind of surround ourselves with a lot of like the uni kind of startup communities and apply
Mm,
for a lot of the pitching competitions there. So we were around a lot of other kind of entrepreneurial spirited people for like universities and stuff like that. And I think surrounding ourselves with those people really inspired us to kind of face those challenges. But once you step out of that, because like in the next 2, 3 years, you weren't eligible to apply for those pitching workshops and stuff anymore.
mm.
We then were faced with a lot, the bigger kind of
Yes.
percentage, which is a lot more, I guess, experienced, but also, older. Um, and just older and wiser, and just so many more other businesses. So I think that then became really difficult for us because we were comparing ourselves to, a
Yeah.
large
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. And it's hard not to. And I think also as kind of female founders from ethnic minority backgrounds as well, it's like we don't go into the room thinking that, but also you go into the room and you notice it. But it's, you know,
Sure.
you just kind of have to, for us, we just kind of had to like get on with it and really just, you know, go in with that open mindset of learning rather than like, you know, overthinking a lot of where we are compared to a lot of people. We went in just kind of wanting to be curious. And then I think, you know, that kind of helps us a little bit with the challenges, but the challenges are still there and they always are, you know, as much as there's so much support out there, there's still a lot of expectation and demand and pressures, whether that's kind of your own personal pressures and expectations, but it's still like, you know, I'm sure you understand as a founder, you constantly want to do better. And even if you hit one milestone, it's like, right, this is the next one. There's no kind of like break in between. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's some amazing gold nuggets, as I call it, on the podcast coming out of you, and I've heard you speak multiple times. So I know, and that's why I was very very eager to have you today. Is uh, the wise things that you're talking about, Joey, takes a lot, and I think it only comes from your own personal journey. No
Mm,
amount of books, no amount of other readings, etc. But I think the message that what you're trying to say is really important. Is as a founder, there are going to be so many curve balls at you every day, but you just need to keep your head up, keep on going,
mm.
and yeah, eventually you'll figure it out.
Yeah, until the next problem comes. But
Yeah, yeah,
you'll then
yeah,
figure
no,
that one out too. Yeah,
yeah,
it's never ending.
totally. I have this joke. I say this to every different people. Is uh, when I sleep, I kind of know the amount of problems I have, and
Mm,
when I want to wake up, I'm happy to look at everything that I knew. Just in the morning, something new shouldn't crop up,
mm.
but never, no, that never happens, right? So that's just what it is.
Yeah.
I've also gone and seen your profile, and you've worked in different places. You've gained those experience over the years, etc. Right? What was that moment, Joey, that finally you decided, no, you know what, I would want to do this, and I would want to start by myself into the social enterprise thing. What was that moment for you?
Um, to be honest, I feel like I've had many of those moments. Even when I was younger, I think, you know, that kind of curious kid, I started, I guess my very first kind of entrepreneurial kind of journey started when I was like the 19, 20 years old. So I made
Right.
these kind of handmade beaded necklaces with like girls' names on them. And the kind of point of it was to raise awareness, but also boost people's confidence. So a lot of girls, the idea of it was to wear your name on your neck so you'd feel more confident. And there were loads of different colors, so you could create your own. And I would make them. So I made over 250 necklaces, and I was like, I'm done.
Wow.
It was too
Yeah.
much. It was fun for what it was. I wasn't making any money, but the kind of purpose and idea was there. And I think that kind of explains a lot of, I guess, my kind of intentions. It's a lot about wanting to start things that make people feel good or
Mm.
make people, you know, want to talk about it. And so that's, I guess, you know, with Leiho, it was that kind of challenge of knowing that there were not a lot of social enterprises out there that sold things that really were, I guess, not meaningful at the time, but it was, you know, something that is personal to you and
Mm-hmm.
something that you can gift and talk about. And I know our products are kind of just socks or caps and t-shirts, but you know, we decided to go for the everyday essentials because those are things that you don't even think about. You kind of have to put
True.
on in the morning,
Yeah.
you know, and it's like, how can you add meaning to that? Because if you can, then you can do that in so many other ways. So I think it was more that determination of wanting to prove to my younger self, but also to people that, you know, it can be something as simple as selling a pen, but
Yeah.
it's about how you tell the story, how you really make
Absolutely.
impact with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how you connect with like consumers or people, you know, people buying it.
Yeah. Um, Very interesting. I was speaking to a founder, again, a very young, impressive lady, a few weeks back, and when I asked her that, how do you think it's different selling maybe 5, 7 years back and selling now? And one of the first things she mentioned, Joey, was you need to be comfortable in front of a camera now.
Mm.
Nobody would imagine saying that to an entrepreneur like a few years back. What's your take? Is it building a brand today about standing in the front and trying to show your face to people, or there are still other ways to do about it?
I mean, I would say yes and no, like as in, I think so. I went to Virgin Startups kind of 10-year anniversary, and Simon Sinek was actually one of the guests, and he was amazing. But
Nice.
there's one thing that he said, and it was that, your business that you start is a extension of your own personality. It's your values as a brand. Your logo is basically you. And
Yeah.
he was giving examples of like, like Apple. Apple isn't a brand. Apple is literally Steve Jobs as, a company, and it's his personality, it's him.
Yeah.
And so that really put things into perspective. Like, I think, nowadays, of course, it's really important to show up. And, if you're starting a brand, it's important to show up and talk about it, because essentially people want to support you, or buy from your brand or work with you based on your values. And I think a lot of the times now, it's all like a new way of thinking. It's not what it was kind of 5, 6, 7 years ago. It's not something that you just see and you buy. A lot of it now is like research, as well researched. That's why
Yeah.
there's the
Yeah.
SEO and all of like this stuff online, because
True.
people are doing their own due diligence of how they can be better people. I think maybe somehow along the last kind of 7, 8 years, maybe something happened, or like something was triggered in people. Maybe it could even be COVID, but like something must have happened within that change from, kind of just kicking a ball in the playground to TikTok to Instagram.
Yeah.
And within that kind of timeline, I think a lot of people then had this realization of, I want to be better, I want to do better, and I can change. Whereas I think, if you ask someone 10, 20 years ago, they'd be like, this is me, I can't change, there's nothing I can
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's that kind of like constant growth mindset that is
Very
embedded in
nice.
people. But
Yeah.
whether or not that's like the desperation of like, needing to take hold of your life again, I think it's nice to be able to talk about your brand. It's hard and it's scary. It's not for everyone, but
Yeah.
if you really want to connect with people, then I think it doesn't necessarily always have to be the founder. It's nice
True.
if it is,
Yeah.
but you see a lot of brands and businesses now, the team gets involved, the social media
True.
team. They
Mm.
film like all the behind the scenes in the office. So even that is like connecting. It's more of a human to human connection rather than a
Yes.
brand now.
Yes. Yeah. That's fair. But you are good at that, so you don't have to worry about the ones who are not doing it, right? So
Yeah. Got no choice now, I feel, but yeah.
yeah, I think it gets down to a lot of people when you're in the early stage, you don't have those kind of teams, etc. To even reach that scale, you have to do it, and you bring that confidence, right? You ooze that comfort to people, saying, you know what, hey, this is the lady, if this is the brand, then I'm going to give them a try, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And so you're a digital first brand, right? And you launched before the COVID time, and now you've seen the market, change and evolve, and whatever nicer words that we can put to that.
Mhm.
But as if what it stands currently, right? We know the cost of acquisition is going crazy. Targeting and stuff is becoming harder and harder, right? Um, what are your like main strategic areas that as a brand owner who's in like 4 to 5 years in the business is kind of looking at in this and the coming year?
I would say probably community is kind of the first and biggest thing for us, and it always has been. So actually, when we first started, we were online. Obviously, we had our website up and running, but we made sure that we were doing a lot of in-person pop-ups,
Mm.
just to connect with customers and really understand who our target audience was, and how to tell people this story, how to share our brand, because there's not, yes, you've got a website, but when we were starting out, we weren't sure how much to put into the website. And so I think with the mindset of wanting to be in person and speaking to customers, obviously then COVID happened and we had to shift that online. So we wanted to do as many in person. We did
Mm.
one. And then after that, it was like lockdown. So we were then kind of forced to have to move everything online and really learn about how to connect with people. And so we started doing loads of like marketplaces, obviously our social media and emails. And I think at the time, what we noticed was we were literally like a nobody brand. And during
Mm.
COVID, lots of people then started following us and, emailing us or, buying things because of that community aspect we were giving them. We were
Yeah.
giving that opportunity to
Yeah.
buy something that you could send to someone's house, you could send to your mums, your friends, your
Yeah.
colleagues during that time of need during COVID when everyone was kind of clinging on to any part of, human to human connection, community that they could. And
Right.
so we actually did so well during COVID because people were honestly looking for gifts that gave back
Yeah.
front,
True.
left, and
Yeah.
center. And so I think that really put into perspective like how much your strategy needs to be around community, whether it's building that community online, whether it's having in-person events nowadays, whether it's those like rewards and stuff. It's about how can you make sure that you're giving people, I guess, what they need, and it's not just a discount anymore. It's that kind of like personal fulfillment, that meaningful fulfillment of I've earned this, or
Yeah.
a lot of brands now, they gamify the way they do things to actually reward people with points. And so I think it's really smart because you're almost allowing people to be a part of this community you're building and you're
Yeah.
personalizing it into your own. So I think, yeah, the community aspect is really important for just any kind of on and offline strategy.
I love this, Joey. That I think discount are like such a strategy where most brands get it wrong, or
Mm.
uh, we've created them as a necessary evil to exist in the industry because of the sale and stuff, and everybody just kind of waits for it. I'm sure people have kind of cracked that thing that if I leave a abandoned cart on this website, then maybe in 20 minutes I'm going to get an email with a discount coupon. The crazy amount of stuff, right? But what you mentioned, I think, is so important is, um, if you're making people involved in the whole process and decision, and getting involved with the brand, then just discounting is not the way forward.
Mm.
And we at Kui, we try to do this, that we work on visitor intent, right? So we kind of look at, if and visitor is high intent, then don't give them 20%, give them 5%. Or if they're medium, then do, because depending on how complex the customer journeys have become,
Yeah.
you also understand where the visitor is in the journey, and then kind of engage with them,
Mm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's so important, on what you mean, because people don't understand, it's just the bottom line which keeps on hitting, etc., etc.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that personalization is like so important as well. Like you said, really understanding how every person is different. And so it's not like one mass message you can send anymore. It's literally
Yeah.
like each person, like what are their behaviors and what do they need at that time
Yeah.
is, yeah.
And fundamentally, the website, right? Like, this is what I when I talk to brands day in and day out, right? One of the first things, like, you guys work so hard in segmenting and targeting visitors on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and PMax and stuff. But as soon as those visitors come to your website, you end up treating everybody the same,
Mm.
and then
Yeah.
there's a silence. And they're
Yeah.
like, yeah, that kind of stuff, and that's so important for us to look at it from a customer's point of view.
Mm.
uh, you know because customer, and especially for a brand like you, they expect a lot, right? They're expecting the engagement, they're expecting the community feel, because you're not trying to play on price, you're trying to play on a much bigger motivation that you want to offer them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me this, Joy, that if you had to start a brand today, right? All from scratch, all from your learnings, COVID, non-COVID, etc. Right? What are your tips and suggestions for young entrepreneurs to focus on the first three aspects of the product launch?
Okay. So if I was starting a new brand today, the three things. So first, I would say really understanding your values and what are you actually trying to create, because the kind of longevity of the brand and the business will be basically based on those values that you have, those kind of preset values. So like the
Yeah.
why and the purpose. That's for me anyway. I feel like understanding what you're trying to build. Is it something, are you passionate about sustainability, about social impact? Are you passionate about, it doesn't have to be sustainability or impact. Is it something quirky that you're bringing to the market, something
Totally.
innovative, something that really, will drive you? Because I think the times that you struggle with, it's, your passion for that and your
Yeah.
kind of fight for that will help grow it. And then the second thing is really understanding your market. So, like, who are you actually trying to target? I always say, jokingly to my friends, because, obviously we've got like socks and caps and tote bags and stuff. And they're like, oh, you're not wearing Leiho socks today. And I'm like, yeah, don't get high on your own supply, because, you're not building this business for you. It is an extension of you, but you're building it for a wider community. You're building it for, people, and it's almost a problem that you're solving for these people. So what is their pain points? Who is your market? Who are
Yeah.
you going to appeal to? And you know what? I always say the target audience, people get so fixated on really understanding it, but that changes over time. Who you target kind of day one and, in 1 or 2 years' time might change, and you never know that. But you have to learn that as you go, because
Totally.
we thought we were targeting like, young, kind of trendy, cool streetwear people. But actually, it ended up being, eco-conscious young professionals, mums who like to give gifts for friends and family, and that kind of more meaningful, I would say, audience. And we had to learn that over time just by
Yeah.
really understanding who our audience was. So I think, yes, you can have a kind of preset idea of your audience, but also
Mm.
try and not get too fixated on it and be able to kind of, really understand and get to know them, because they're the people who will then multiply your people. And yeah, I think that's really important. And the third, I would say, is probably that kind of links to the first, but your branding and your messaging. What do you want your brand to convey as a whole? Is it going to be more educational? Is it going to be more of an emotional connection with people? Is it going to be, like the kind of functional of your product, like functionality of your product, really understanding what those kind of key messages are. And you can have a few, but I think what we learned the hard way was that we had so many different messages that we just, got out, that we then didn't know how to measure or really understand what is of value to people. So keeping it simple and saying, okay, our product is meaningful. And so that is a kind of emotional connection that we want as our main hook to our audience. And that's what we want to attract. And then the kind of value add is maybe my kind of functionality of the product, or the durability, or, the style. But really understanding what that kind of headline value of your product is. And then after that, what that kind of added value is important.
Yeah. Really nicely put. I think you summarize very nicely because in my parlance, if I say, do your market research, understand what they're kind of looking at, try to have the messaging as clear as possible that can instantly connect and resonate with, etc., and then deliver the value because you're trying to solve a problem of the product at the end, right? And these are the kind of things, if you can put together, then just go and continuously learn from it, because the evolution will absolutely happen and you'll learn over time. Very, very nicely put, Joy. And I really hope all the young guys who are kind of starting out, gain from the experiences and the pitfalls that we've had. Yeah.
Thank you.
So now when we come to the next year, when markets are going to change and things are going to evolve, as a brand for you, what are the top three priorities laid out? What are you going to focus on?
So I would say the top three. So the first thing that we'd probably be focusing on is really, again, I can't even say enough, the community, right? So obviously, as we grow, the market has changed a lot. And last year, I'm not even going to lie, like we really struggled. And I try and be as open and honest with people about that, because, I don't want to say, yes, everything's rainbows and butterflies. Like, no, it wasn't. And we really, really went through a very hard time. and it's what, July, and we're still kind of slowly recovering from all of that. So I think the one thing that has really carried us along and really allowed us to survive is our community, whether it's, on the B2C or B2B side. But for us, it's really understanding, okay, as a business, for us to survive at the moment, we have focused a lot on the kind of B2B side as well, because there's so much opportunity collaborating and partnering with like businesses and brands, and even agencies and stuff. So really leaning on that ability to collaborate with people around you, and also to almost lean on them when you need. I always say, like, the importance of, I guess, having your business survive is about finding that kind of community or people you can lean on. When you only have 20% to give, they'll cover your 80, and vice versa. So I think that's like a really nice way of thinking about it when it comes to, yeah, just like the kind of growth of your business, really understanding who is going to cover that 80% when you only have 20% to give. And when you're at your best, how can you cover other people's kind of 80%
Yeah,
when they only have 20? Um, and then the second bit would be that kind of, I guess, personalization, I think, is important. So, that personalization of how you can make the whole experience and the brand really connect with people on a very personal level, because people have different relationships with items or products or brands or businesses or even charities they support. Everyone's, I guess, mindset is almost
mhm,
very different. Like, we all have our own thoughts, we all have our own experiences,
totally.
traumas, everything. So, the way that we have, so if I say, I love, I don't know, for example, a bracelet, and you love the exact same bracelet, we share very similar ways, or like thoughts of loving this bracelet, that kind of feeling can be described as very similar, but also that kind of internal feeling is very different. So I think being able to really reach that kind of feeling is so important, because that's where kind of real change will happen, right? So I think, yeah, that kind of personalization and that meaning is really important. So how can we as a brand do that? And brands and businesses have so much power over people. You've seen, like, everywhere on social media, but it's like, how do you make that power really life changing for someone, whether it's inspiring them for that 1 second or whatnot. And then the third, I would say, is probably to be a brand that can inspire people. It kind of links to the second, but inspire people in many different ways. When they look at it, they're like, it gives them ideas. And I think the world is almost, there's so much going on, like, where there's just, yeah, whether it's like kind of politics, the social side of it, or the environmental side, and a lot of change needs to happen. And in order for that change to happen, we need kind of leaders and role models and people who can almost be a like beacon of hope, basically. So I think, yeah, it's that level of inspiration that your brand or agency, you as a person, can be to people, for them to then, really make change. And I think it doesn't have to be entrepreneurs. You don't have to be a brand that inspires other leaders. It could be that you inspire a big company to want to make change within their kind of internal structure. And
Yeah,
I think if you can do that, then you're, winning, because you can really, yeah, make change from that. So,
very very impressive, and especially the last part. I had never thought of it in that way. That it's a very fresh and novel thinking here, Joey. That you don't have to go and create a brand itself and then go and impact 100,000 people, right? But even if you go and influence somebody who's already bigger to make those smaller impacts, etc., I think that's very nicely put. And the B2B perspective, what you spoke of,
mm,
that should be a very big untapped segment for you as well. And everybody's moving towards corporate social responsibility and all the lot of big things, right? Which can all be very nice, very nice. Really, really, really happy to hear your amazing thoughts on this.
thank
I'm,
you.
I'm loving this, but just in the interest of time, Joy, two more questions, right?
Yes.
um, we've seen, and your evolution, you speak about a lot of things, right? There's one thing which is already embedded in our lives, is AI, right?
Mm.
And as a young entrepreneur that you are, working on a brand, Shopify and everything else, right? Do you think AI is going to come and help you or what's the kind of impact AI will make in your and the brand's life in the coming years?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm so intrigued by it. I think it's, it's this whole new way of working and living. I think it's scary to many, but also I think it's a very interesting way of being more efficient, to really understanding a lot more. Like, I feel like AI is just come in and it's, changed a lot of the way businesses operate and the way businesses work. And that level of efficiency is definitely stronger. And I think there are so many different areas in which it benefits you, whether it's not, I feel like a lot of people might be scared of it because it's like, it could be replacing jobs and stuff like that. But I think, even if it's, for example, ChatGPT, if I'm like, can you help me come up with like three creative ideas for, I don't know, this given project? And they do. It's not like I'm taking those projects and I'm then doing it. It's like you then, that's
Yeah,
an inspiration. That's like something that then triggers in your mind. And then
exactly.
like you build from that. And I think
Yeah,
there's so much stigma around that, but actually it's like you're receiving thousands and thousands of information every single day. Like the
yeah,
way our brains operate nowadays is so different. So I think, we need that help probably a little bit to
yeah,
then re-spark that kind of imagination in our head, that creativity. And sometimes with the help of AI, I think it's, it's great. And, it makes people come up with even more creative ideas because it sparks that energy in them that they might just need a bit of a push from. So, I think there is a lot more, I guess, opportunity for businesses to kind of grow with AI in the next kind of couple of months and years. Um, and I think different levels of businesses as well, right? The way it impacts
yeah,
a small business and a medium-sized business and a large business is very, very different. And so I think it has that kind of unique aspect and element that it is able to kind of, help your business grow, whether it's kind of small or
yeah,
big. Um, but yeah,
yeah,
I guess it's also how you use it,
yeah,
right? So
yeah,
they always teach people how you can actually optimize and use it well. So that kind of level of wanting to actually learn how to use it might make it more efficient, so to
yeah.
speak. So yeah,
But I'm loving to hear the whole creative angle that you came out with, right? Because bubbling with ideas, when you have to kind of funnel and stream your thoughts and then kind of go inside, because uh, everything's so busy, right? Your mind is always preoccupied by thousands of things. Being creative is one of the most difficult things which has become of us now. But
yeah,
if somebody gives you that snippet and then you kind of take that on and create something else, you put it very nicely. So yeah,
yeah,
okay, yeah,
yeah.
amazing. All right, and this is the most difficult question, Joey. So
Okay,
brace yourself,
I'm
and
ready.
I you have been warned. Let's put it that way. For everybody watching and hearing to you speak all these amazing things, you have to share something with us that you've never told anyone about you.
Okay, about me or
Yes.
about business? Okay,
Oh,
about
it has to be something funny, something happened to you, or something for us
okay,
to. Yeah.
okay. I mean, I have a story that only six people know.
Okay. That counts. So go
Okay.
for it.
It's I went to a group coaching session and we had to talk about, it was like an icebreaker, and it was how you made your first pound
Hmm.
or dollar or whatever. So for
Sure.
me it was a Hong Kong dollar. And I actually had to think about it and I was like, oh my God, I can't even say mine out loud because from the business I've built today and also like the room we were in, it was all women in impact. But anyway, when I was younger, we were in a library and there was this girl in my class and she was a really, really good artist. She's an influencer now and she's
Hmm.
like a kind of sketch artist influencer,
Wow.
over like 150K followers. Anyway, she drew these kind of bookmarks of fairies, right? And they're really beautiful. She colored them and it took a lot of time and effort. And then she had a laminator and she laminated them. Anyway, I was like, oh my God, this is great. Like, we should give them out so everyone has these bookmarks, these fairy bookmarks. And she thought it was a great idea because she loves doing it. And so I was the person selling the bookmarks, right? So I would
Nice.
sell them for like $2, $3, and I would keep the money and then she would make the bookmarks and I never gave her anything. But I was also like I don't even know. I was in year 4 or 5. So no
Yeah,
one taught me that I obviously had to pay my artist.
yeah,
So I was really young and, I made all of this money, was able to buy sweets and crisps. And then this girl, drew all these bookmarks and I sold them. So yeah, that was something that
that
was
is
very
really
wrong.
cool. Yeah.
But you know what? She's an influencer artist now, and practice makes perfect, right? So maybe that kind of practice of having to do all that many helped her
Absolutely.
at some point.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah, and it goes both ways, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
now I know. Now I help a lot of people in this world because of that one flip.
That's amazing, and that's also funny because yeah, that's really nice. No, thank you so much for sharing this, Joy. And I know so the entire seeds of whole entrepreneurship started very early for you, and
Illegally as
it
well,
we yeah,
probably.
and now that you're in a completely different space of how trying to give it back all the time, right? So
Yeah.
that evolution has been amazing, and I've been fortunate enough to see you and see your brand, and look at the things you're doing. Wishing you all the best, and hope to be able to catch up with you soon again. But it was amazing to have you on doing e-commerce, so thank you so much for your time.
No worries. Thank you for having me and happy Monday.
You too, and talk to you soon then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.